I don't need to post so much. I can only post maybe 3 times a week. I can still get great results. I'm still getting leads. I'm still getting growth. I'm still getting followers. I'm still getting all that stuff. And I'm not posting a ton. It's because I'm posting the way that my audience likes and the way that the algorithm likes. What if I just shared that with the world?
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Katie Brinkley. Social media marketing is a crowded space with many companies offering perspectives on how to provide a unique and compelling online voice for their clients. Katie has taken a very unconventional approach by advocating for less content posted with more intention. Instead of being everywhere all at once, she wants to be in the right places, sharing the right kinds of content with the right people. I love this strategy, and I genuinely believe that anyone posting content online has some really important things that they can learn from Katie. On today's episode, I talk with her about how her journey as a founder began, how she navigated the growth she experienced by hiring new employees, how she learned to say no to the areas of the business that she knew others could handle, all the way to company culture, and how she's learned to keep an intentional focus on her business, even while building a company whose role is to focus on the business of others. She's a wealth of knowledge, and she shares it with a candor and transparency that will give anyone listening a ton to take away. Here's my interview with Katie. All right, guys, today with me, I have Katie Brinkley. Katie, hi, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. I am so excited to have you on. We've been working for a while together with my company, Dwellspring, and you guys have done a fantastic job. And we've connected on several occasions and just seemed to have really clicked. And I thought, I want to hear more about Katie's story, more about how this all started. So I appreciate you taking the time. This is going to be great.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. And, it's anytime I get to sit down with you, it's always a lot of fun. And like you said, we've had the chance to meet IRL a few times,
that's
and
right.
It's always a good time. So yeah,
Awesome.
Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Let's dig right into the journey of this startup, of you founding this business that you're in right now. I want to hear more about it. You can tell us the name and all about it. But let's kind of start here with this first question. As you think about your path towards entrepreneurship, what did you do before jumping into your own path of building your own company? But why did you feel that was the right fit for you? Why not something more traditional? Why was this right?
It's so funny that I ended up starting my own company because I was always meant to have my own company. Like looking back at my childhood and the way that I did things, I'm like, well, I was always meant to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know that. So I went, I did all the traditional things. I went to college. I got the degree that I went to college for, which was a journalism degree. I wanted to be a radio reporter, a sports radio reporter.
Oh, awesome.
And so lucky I landed that job right out of college. So I was the post-game reporter for the Colorado Rockies and the Denver Broncos and Denver Nuggets.
I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
So I was going in the locker rooms.
Were you in Colorado at the time, or did that relocate you there?
I'm a Colorado gal. I'm one of the few people that's actually born in Colorado, went to school in Colorado, stayed in Colorado. But yeah, it's I mean, like, it was my dream job. And back then, this was a while ago, so there weren't a ton of women in the industry. Like, it's completely changed now. Like, it's weird to see a guy on the sidelines, at a game. But back then, it was still mostly a man's world, and I loved what I did. I was so fortunate to work with somebody that I looked up to. So when I was a kid, I grew up playing competitive softball, and I actually went to college to play softball. And I went all over the state, and my dad loved talk radio, probably why I wanted to go into radio versus television. And there was a woman that would come on, I think at the top of every hour. Her name is Susie Wargin. And I was like, man, it's just so cool hearing a woman talk about sports. It's because I'm listening to guys talk about it all the time. And that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I would like to do that one day. And I was so fortunate enough to actually have her as my mentor when I started at 850 KOA. And yeah, I mean, I never thought I would get out of the radio business, but I mean, life has an interesting way of taking us to where we need to be. So, super fast forward, Cliff Notes version, Sirius XM came out. Everyone in the radio industry panicked. Susie, she went into television. Lots of people went into like different mediums. I went into marketing, and I was the marketing manager at the Rockies TV station. And then, unfortunately, AT&T purchased the TV station, and all of the marketing managers had to relocate to Atlanta. And like I said, I'm a Colorado gal. I did not want to move to Atlanta, and it really was not going to be working in TV for the Rockies anymore. So it's like, well, I guess I'll just find something else. And that was back in 2016. And my something else was being an entrepreneur.
Nice. Awesome. So when you did that, when you got started, it sounds like you didn't build it with anybody else. You didn't have a co-founder?
No, I did it from my couch with a laptop.
Nice.
Well, not only did I find out I was being laid off, but 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant with our second daughter. And I was like, well, now who's going to want to hire me? you know, but thanks for hiring me. By the way, I need to go on maternity leave right after I'm done being trained and everything. So my husband and I sat down and I was like, what if I can just try and get some social media work in the interim until I'm able to find that next job, and I'll just kind of work here and there as much as I can. I got a severance check, and so it was like, oh, I have a little bit of a cushion to kind of try and figure something out. And before I knew it, I was like, man, I'm making more than I was when I was at the TV station. This is great. Why would I want to go back to that? And that was back in 2016, 2017, and I love what I do. I always have had a passion for social media and radio audio, but social media I first got started with MySpace back in college. My college wasn't cool enough for the Facebook, even though it didn't. I had a .edu email address, and my first introduction to HTML code was MySpace, and I always wanted to find a way to be successful on social media without like spending all my time on it. And I think because I always had that mentality, it allowed me to look at social media differently. And I've been able to bring that approach to, Next Step Social, and really kind of give our clients a different way of doing their social media and showing up, and more effective way of showing up.
And when you started as on your own, that makes sense of kind of why you were like, all right, I need to be starting something of my own. Was it a result of you didn't know anybody else in this space yet? You didn't have a network built that you decided to start by yourself, or was that more an intentional decision? Why did you not do co-founding?
So I didn't. Well, one, I came from corporate. I had been working in a corporate world, and like, for example, I remember one of my friends that I worked with at the TV station was like, hey, I'm going to go to this thing tonight. It's called Network After Work. And I was like, why would I want to go and talk about work after work? That sounds terrible. But that's because I had been in that corporate setting for so long. I didn't know anything about like networking and stuff. And I politely declined. I think I did say, why would I want to go talk about work after work? But I did decline going with him. And I just didn't know the entrepreneurship stuff. Like, I didn't know like how important networking is and anything like that, and like building out your community, how to even get started. And I chose to go by myself because I didn't know I could have a co-founder. My boss at the TV station, she was awesome. And she said to me, she goes, Katie, you're so awesome at social media. It'd be cool if you could find a job where that's all you do. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I am pretty good at social media. Like, that's one of my favorite parts of the job. And then she said, it'd be cool if you could find a way to get back into radio. And that's when I launched my podcast. But I mean, like, now I really do the two things that I'm most passionate about, which are social media and podcasting. And if my boss hadn't said, it'd be cool for you to go and find a job where social media was all you do, I don't think it would have even clicked for me. Like, I could go and do social media for other people. I, of course, looked at corporate jobs first, but at the time, it was all entry level. It was a lot. I was like, I'm too old for an entry level job. Like, I need something that pays more now. Like, I have a mortgage and kids. And so that's where I was like, well, what if I just try and do it on my own and see if I can find some clients. And like I said, everything changed then.
That's awesome. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in their companies because of exactly that. It sounds like you need someone guide you in that direction. But even if someone's not guided, I feel like a lot of us find ourselves building a business that we are just like, well, what do we like doing? Like,
Yeah.
what are we gifted at, and what do we like doing? Like, what do I try to do more in the job I already have? Oh, I try to just always do more of this, either because I'm
Hmm.
good at it or I enjoy it. So you end up just building a business around that, and it sounds like that was a bit of your experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So as you did that and you transitioned full time and you went all in, and I mean, you're pregnant and preparing for your second child. I mean, what was that experience like as a business owner at that time? This is like sounds like you started making more pretty quickly, which is great and always a real boost and motivator. But like, what was that experience like? Was it as you expected, or were there things that surprised you?
Well, I found that the hardest part was pricing. I didn't
Mm,
I didn't know what to charge, um, because I didn't know what it was worth. I really didn't
yeah.
know what this service was worth it because I was doing social media and I was writing scripts and I was writing commercials and I was doing this and I was planning part. I mean, I was doing all these other things. And so I was like, well, if I just charged people that like, 20% of my monthly revenue. And then I was like, man, I'm constantly working. And
Hmm.
soon I also found that because I knew how to do all these things that were outside of social media, like I found myself building websites and I was like, why am I doing these things? And
Hmm.
that was one of the hardest lessons was learning to say no, even though there was opportunity for revenue. Being like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I can build you a WordPress website, but man, my hourly rate when I'm building websites, then if we build it into this package, it's maybe $2 an hour. That's not the best use of my time. So I had to really look back and be like, okay, what am I worth? And then what's my hourly worth? And then what am I most passionate about? Because that's what I should be an expert in. And I need to find clients that, sure, they might need website help. Great. Maybe I can build out a referral, but social media is my power. That's my strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's really important to excuse me, to understand and know early on is what's the value of my time and where is that time spent most valuably. They sound the same, but they're two separate things. Of like
Totally.
how can I what's the most valuable thing that will make my business grow the most? I mean, you can be very, very busy and grow your business very, very little. And even getting business, like you said, it's like it's not like you're saying no to things that make no money,
Hmm.
or you're getting traction. People are interested in what you're doing. They saw something else you did. They're like, "That's great. Can you do that for me too?" And you can really get stuck in a rut of doing things that don't capitalize on the most valuable pieces of what you offer, or what you're going to get paid for.
Yeah. And I think that learning to say no as an entrepreneur is probably one of the hardest things.
Yeah. For sure. Especially when early on when you're starting it like yourself, very scrappy, it's like you're taking anything you can get. And then
Yeah.
at some point you have to shift from that and be like, I think I'm past that now, but then what do I say no to?
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about that building of that of your business as you're doing that and gaining some traction. You're getting some customers, doing some different things for them, learning what you're good at, where you should spend your time. This is all really helpful conversation. Let's talk about the customer segments, your target market, where you were finding like, okay, here's the people I need to be talking to, and how did you go find them?
Yeah. So I was working with just about anyone for a very long
I mean,
time.
everybody needs what you're offering, really. Most
Yeah.
people do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And,
Hmm.
and, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. Oh, yeah, you do this. Okay. Yeah, I could do that. And I found that it was fun because I was allowing myself to be more creative, but at the same time, it wasn't allowing me to scale. And so I went to social media marketing world in March of 2020. And I was at this event and I was like, man, there's a lot of people out here that do what I do. A lot of them
Mm,
have podcasts like this is crazy. And it wasn't until I went to that conference that I really switched from it being, this is a solopreneur, my business, to I want this to be something bigger. Because
mm,
after I left that conference, I hired my first coach and then I launched my podcast. And then I hired my very first team member, Racy, and
awesome.
she's still with me today. She started as my assistant and now she is our podcast manager. Like she manages all the podcasts, she manages all the video. I mean, like she's incredible and it's great that she's been with me for so long because she knows the company just as well as I do. Like she knows the clients just as well as I do. And once 2020 came and I was like, all right, I'm going to make this. I want this to be something bigger. I'm tired of just working from my couch, and I just made that mindset shift. And when I did that, I think it allowed me the opportunity to be like, this is what's possible. And if I want that to be what's possible, I can't work for everybody. I have to have like my bubble of this is what we do. Now, do I still have some client? Like I still have Sally. Sally's been with me for 8 years. And she's amazing. It's awesome that we still have her, but she's kind of the rarity from what we're doing now with all of our clients. And that's how I'm focusing now. Like, okay, we only work with CEOs who want to be thought leaders in their industry, that want to do the short form video, that want to have the podcast, because we can help them amplify their message. That is our superpower. And once I found clarity in that, it allowed me to get better clients that I enjoyed working with more, and it allowed our team to produce better content. It's really been a game changer.
CEOs that want to be thought leaders in their space. That's kind of what you've niched all the way down to. And then specifically, I think like the podcast space.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. That's a really defined niche. I bet that's been really helpful directionally as you've decided who to work with.
Yeah, it has been, well, because you get it, Brandon. COVID changed everything. We want to know who we're doing business with. Who's behind that company? And yeah, you can go and hire an influencer. You can hire, a model or, marketing team, but who better than you that can say like, well, I am the face of this company. This is what I believe in. This is why I decided to launch this company. And this is what the products do. Like, who's better than you to be that spokesperson? And so it took, it's been almost a decade, and it took us about 7 years to get really clear on what our superpower is. And once we did, the results for our clients, everything just changed.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you talked about a point that to me, so you went past it because you were talking about how you're growing and what you were doing to facilitate that growth. And this to me though, as I look at kind of starting out my startup journey and going all in on my own business, this is a piece that I just have so many questions about. So I want to hear from you who navigated this piece of, like you said, you started hiring people. I think that's just such a tough moment to identify when it's the right moment to do that. Tell me a little bit more mechanics around that. How did you have money to hire somebody? And how did you have enough business that you were like, I'm confident enough to tell somebody, yes, quit your job, or just like, come start work for me, put your trust in me and my business, and start providing for your family or yourself on the salary that I'm paying you? At what point did you know you were ready for that, could handle that?
It didn't feel like I was ready. And when my business coach said, you need an assistant, I was like, well, what are they going to be able to, what can they do? And they're not going to be able to do anything as good as I can do it, and I didn't think that hiring Racy would be the game changer that it really was. Racy lives in the Philippines. She's amazing. And like I said, she's my right-hand gal. But I started by just, I'm sure you know what Toggle is, TOGGL. It's a time tracking tool. And for 2 weeks, it's free. So it's a great tool, and you can use it for employees, or I used it for me. And I tracked what I did for 2 weeks straight, all day long, from the time I logged in to, checking emails, taking a break to go to the bathroom, eating lunch. Was I taking a break? And I tracked how long literally everything was taking me. And man, I was wasting quite a bit of time on some tasks that
I think we'd all figure that out.
Yeah, that really did not require the CEO of the company to be spending that much time on it. Like if I was spending 3 hours on social media posts for the week, 3 hours isn't that long. But if I was spending 3 hours, what would I have done in that 3 hours if I was on sales calls? So it was really tracking where I was spending a lot of time that I could have help on. And those were the first things that I assigned to Racy. I also use Loom. LOOM.
Mm-hmm.
And I recorded everything that I was doing and I talked through it. So, okay, I'm opening up, the social media scheduler right now. I'm going to be working on Brandon's content. And I just was talking as I was doing it and recorded it all. All of those were Racy's training videos when she first was onboarded. A lot of the videos were pointless, and I deleted them, but there were some that she was able to watch and they still live in our SOP library today because it's a great training of me talking through the task that I'm doing. And like I said, who's going to be able to do the job as good as me? Well, what if I'm just training the person, with the job that I'm doing while I have to do it anyways? And so Toggle and Loom, that's how I first found my, my what tasks I needed to help with at the beginning.
Okay.
I delegated that to Racy. And, like I said, the Philippines, a lot of people, half of my team is in the Philippines. They're amazing. I love them. Like I said, Racy's been with me for 5 years, and you can find people, or the cost of living is very different than it is here. And I really want to pay my employees well. So if you pay well by Philippine standards, it's still a discount compared to $35 an hour, which is what I pay some of my American employees. And so it's still a discount from that, but it's still phenomenal living wages for them.
Right.
Racy's been with me for 5 years now. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, because I pay her well. So you'll find the people that want to stick around and stay and see the business grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I love the process you went through. It was very data driven of well, let me figure out where I need this help. Like you said, I found a lot of areas that I was wasting my time, and that is what everybody would figure out if they took standardized as a process you did. It'd be like, whoa, I'm wasting my time here. And I think it's not even so much of I think it's the things you're spending time on that still, it's not they're not waste of time. What I'm trying to say is they're not waste of time in the sense of
they're not the best use of your time.
You're not doom scrolling. You're not just doing nothing. You're doing things that need to be done. But like you said, not things that the CEO needs to be doing. If you think about thinking strategically, building, visionary partnerships and things that only the CEO can do that others can do. I think identifying those things are really important. So, but when you did that, how did you... Yeah, I don't know. Your coach challenged you to say, well, bring somebody else on board who can do those things. And was that just a leap of faith, or did you have numbers or any data or anything that made you feel more comfortable for I'm ready to take this step and support somebody else in their livelihood?
Yeah. And, now the team at Next Step Social is 13, including myself. Okay. And there's times where, I'll say to my husband, Josh, I can't think about dinner tonight. I have decision fatigue. I can't.
Decision fatigue.
I can't even think about what we are going to have for dinner. Because if you leave it up to me, we're not going to eat. I'm just going to, yeah. So, and I think that happens a lot of times because, as you put it perfectly, now I have to, this person has left the corporate world to come work for me. They believe in my vision. Nikki, my copywriter, is one of those people. She used to work at Stars Network. And I convinced her to leave her safe Stars Network job to come and work for me, to come and write copy. She's amazing at it. And it can be scary when you're trying to do that. And that's where I think one of the most important things is having people on your team that do that role better than you. Because that way, I know Nikki writes good copy. I know that she does. She's amazing at it. I can look at it, but I know that she does good copy. And it's one less thing that I was spending time, one, writing, but two, I don't need to go through every single post that she's been doing because I trust her. And so it's scary to start scaling. I think that the biggest thing was that I invested $10,000 in this coach, which was the biggest investment I'd ever made. I lost sleep over it at night. I was like, I can't believe I did that. I made the biggest mistake in my life. But because it was the biggest investment I'd ever made in my business, I literally did whatever he said.
Yeah, right.
He said, hire an assistant. Okay. I went and hired an assistant. Hey, you need to do this. Okay. I went and did that. So, and I think it was good. he was the perfect coach for me at that point of my business journey. And I think it just is just taking that leap of faith because, man, it was scary. That was when I started not sleeping through the night.
Yeah. And that is when it started. Oh, goodness, I bet. So when you were first getting started, you're bringing people on, growing your team. How did you differentiate yourself from people that were already out there doing that? Social media is and was even at that time a crowded space. I mean, how did you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, and
How do you?
it's hard, especially too with AI now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's 2025, AI is everywhere. I mean, I can't scroll through my feed without seeing some
totally.
sort of, AI social media content generator for only, $1,000 a month. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
come
Mm-hmm.
on. But it honestly was the podcast, my podcast, Rocky Mountain Marketing, that allowed me to figure out what my differentiator was.
Mm.
And it's that I have a social media agency, but and I don't really like being on social media. I don't like it. I like to be with my family. I like to be with my friends. I like to be having conversations. I love going to networking events and conferences and talking with people. But social media is such an important part of business ownership. If you're not on
Mm-hmm.
social media, it's kind of like, do you have a website? No, it's kind of goes hand in hand. So you have to be on social media in some regard. But I was tired of seeing all the noise. I'm like, God, we're not all Gary Vee. We don't have content teams of,
Mm-hmm.
40 that can take me going to a garage sale and turn it into like
Yeah.
80 different pieces of content, Like,
Yeah.
and like, I didn't want to be on social media all the time. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be in real life, having those connections. And so, like you said earlier, the data, I started with MySpace. I went in with intention there. Then Facebook, I went in with intention there. And I found that for me, my biggest differentiator was that I wanted to just get in and get out. I didn't want to spend all day on social media. And I was still seeing great results. I was still seeing my business grow. I was still seeing my opportunities grow. How was I doing this? And I looked at what I was doing, what the algorithms were doing, and I was like, well, I don't need to post so much. I can only post maybe 3 times a week, and I can still get great results. I'm still getting leads. I'm still getting growth. I'm still getting followers. I'm still getting all that stuff, and I'm not posting a ton. It's because I'm posting the way that my audience likes and the way that the algorithm likes. What if I just shared that with the
Mm-hmm.
world? And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
wrote the book and everything was different. And I think that, like I said, having the podcast allowed me to kind of get on my soapbox time and time again about things that I was passionate about. So having the podcast allowed me to learn what my differentiator was.
That's awesome. So as we think about your differentiators, you're getting in, getting started, setting yourself apart from your competition as you're gaining clients and traction. What have you found every business needs a moat, something that makes them defensible, something that makes them like, if you were to talk to whoever, let's just like frame a scenario of you're talking to an investor. They're like, why would I invest in you when someone else can just do what you're doing? You say, no, not everybody can do what I'm doing. Here's what makes me defensible. What is that for you?
I think it is the framework, the strategy.
Okay.
Anybody can create more boring content.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can. AI can. And honestly, if you want boring content, you
Right.
don't need to spend what you're spending with us.
Yep.
But
Totally.
by working with us, the thing that you get is you get trained people that are some of the best in the business. Our brand account manager is one of the go-to people in short form video. Nikki is an incredible copywriter. Racy, she's been to hundreds of podcasting events to know what strategies work. Like everyone that we have is an expert in their own right. And they're all trained in my framework, which is about showing up more intentionally to build a community that's ready to go one step further with you. They're ready to say, yeah, you're doing a retreat, sign me up. Or, hey, you're launching this new product. I don't need it, but I'm going to tell all my friends. Let me help you by emailing my list. I don't even want to buy it, but I want to email my list because I love you and your business so much. And so that's what the 4-post strategy does. And I don't think that anyone else out there really is doing it the way that we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. We talked about you taking a bet of like bringing more people on, listening to. It makes so much sense. You were like, listen, this was such a big investment with my coach. He was just saying what I was like, I'll do that too, because the alternative is to be like, oh, yeah, I made a mistake, and you were all in.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. But walk me through kind of another big bet, if you can think of one that you took in order to kind of grow things in those early stages. Hiring people is certainly one of them. What's another one you can identify that other founders might be able to look for in their journeys or identify with? That's something you had to go out on a ledge for early on.
I think listening to your audience and knowing who your audience is. And whether it's you have a podcast or your social media audience, the data will tell you so much. And there's time and time again, I mean, I had Rocky Mountain Marketing for years, and I come from radio, and people would ask me podcasting questions all the time. And I would do podcast strategy sessions. I would be like, well, what's this? And like, have you looked at this metric? And I was just doing it because I love podcasting. And it wasn't until I had another coach that said, Katie, why don't you like help people with their podcasts? And I was like, that's not what we do. And I said that for over 2 years. That's not what we do. And I was referring people out. That's not what we do. We do social media. And it wasn't until I started actually asking my audience on my podcast and on social media podcasting questions that I found, man, my audience has a lot of podcast questions. A lot of my audience have podcasts. They want me, they're looking to me to give them some insights on this. And that was when I launched the podcast division of Next Step Social. And I was like, well, we do it from Rocky Mountain Marketing. What if we did the 4-post strategy and podcast production for our clients? And everything changed again. And I was so resistant to listening to my audience and them saying, like, them being like, hey, please help us with our podcast. And no, sorry. That's not what I do. I'm just going to keep all that knowledge to myself. But it was, I think it's so important to know what your audience wants. And if they're asking you questions about something regularly, see how you can make that an offer. Like for us, it was launching an entire another division. I don't know if that's the answer for you, but if they're saying, hey, I have questions about how this, is financing right for my business. Maybe you're a tax, company, like, oh, well, maybe you should be starting to offer P&L reports, as an option, or hey, maybe you can set up a GPT that can help people, automatically get their, P&L reports, and it's, a free offer of yours for everyone that signs up for your email list or something. But like, the possibilities are endless. But the questions that don't be afraid to ask your audience questions. Facebook stories, Instagram stories, polls on LinkedIn. Man, it's a gold mine. That's honestly, like, if you follow me on LinkedIn, most of my podcast content is directly from me asking just random questions to my LinkedIn audience and being like, people really have a lot of opinions about this. What if I did a podcast? So yeah.
And so let's keep pushing on this. So you're growing, you're building your team, you're differentiating yourself as you scale what you're building and going to more, you're bringing on more and more clients. That would inevitably bring more people, and you have to build your systems and your processes. As you did that, it sounds like early on you were doing that, quote unquote, bootstrapped. You're doing that from the money, either your own money early on or money you were making was going right back into the business. Did you ever take funding? And if so, talk me through at least the beginning of that process. And if not, why you chose not to go that route and how you accomplished the cash flow you needed to keep growing your business.
I did not ever take any capital. It was all bootstrapped. And I think that for me, I was able to do that because I received the severance check. I had that little bit of a cushion to where I could build up, like, okay, I'm making this much now. But once I found, like, okay, well, I don't know if you've ever read the book Profit First.
I did.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
It's a good book. I don't agree with all of it, but I think it's a great way of thinking about business. I was an LLC And the only money that I was making at the end of the day was what was left over after paying my team and for software and all that. And I had to make the switch to what is my salary and pay myself first. And then I paid, the business, savings, and then I could focus on paying out the team and everything. And I switched from being the owner to being like an employee as far as like payroll. And it was, at the beginning, you're not making that much money. I think that, again, really realizing what the going rate, for social media services, what the going rate is, it was like I was comparing myself to VAs in India, and then I sat down and really looked, okay, what is the going rate for social media agencies? What is the going rate for podcast production companies? And holy cow, I'm really undercharging. Now let's go ahead. We have to raise the rates and see what clients are willing to stay and which ones are willing to go. And it helped me really figure out who my best clients were, who wanted to stay with me and grow and like the work that we were doing. And at first, again, it's always scary saying bye to money. But when you do that, it allows you to find the people that you enjoy working with the most. And then two, the clients that enjoy the product that you are putting out the most, that see the value of your worth. So I did not take any capital. I hope to not ever do that.
It's a huge accomplishment. I think that a lot of times in this startup space, it's almost like a rite of passage or a badge of honor to say you grabbed funding. And the more I've pressed into this space and the more I've kind of heard from investors and other founders, people are say like, yep, funding's absolutely a route. And for some businesses, it's the right call or the only call.
Yeah.
But if you can pull it off without it, do it. Like, make sure that you have to get funding, because it's just a whole different ballgame. Not only mention giving up equity and positions and ownership in your company, losing some control there, but also just like, all the other things that go with it, the pressure cooker it becomes. And so, I mean, it's a huge accomplishment to do it on your own.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that too, like, consider yourself a business from day one, not just making like
That's really good.
It's, if you consider yourself from a business from say day one, and this is my salary, and then this is how much the business needs to keep. I mean, like, that is going to shift how you're looking at scaling.
Totally. As you guys continued to grow, how did I really loved the word you used, intention. And you said, listen, I was on this platform and started pressing into this with intention. I then looked here and I said, this is where we need to be. And with intention, we moved into that space. And I love that. It sounds like you have a lot of that baked in and would do that then in parts of your company to build intention and to build vision and purpose and a culture. And that's just such a big piece, especially of a startup with few people and so many human dynamics. How did you initially create that culture in your company? And then how did you make sure that continued in the way that you envisioned it as you grew?
Yeah, I think that it does all start with the CEO or the founder. It is your vision. And like Fridays, I use for Next Step Social Days. We help a lot of different businesses where we really get into the vision, we would sit down and say, okay, what's your goals for 2025? How can we help you get there? And, we think about that every time we begin working on that client. And so I found I was getting lost in the clients for a while. And then it wasn't until a year ago that I blocked out Fridays. I work on Fridays, but it says I'm out of office. And the reason it says I'm out of office is because I don't want people to bother me. I need to focus in on the vision. What is the vision of my company? And how can I ensure that, everyone on my team knows what the vision is? Is it stated, through the way that I'm showing up online? Is it coming through in my presentations? Am I finding the right clients that understand our vision? Maybe they don't align anymore. I'm going to have a tough conversation with them, or, maybe find a different social media partner for them. So those Fridays and blocking them out have been a game changer for me growing Next Step Social. It's because it's become a way for me to be like, this is the vision of where we are now and where I want to be in a week, or where I want to be in a month, where I want to be in a year. And I think that every business owner needs to find, it doesn't need to be a day. For me, it does, because I kind of am scattered and everywhere, but it needs to be a full day for me. But spend some time, maybe it's just an hour a week, where you sit down and focus in on the vision of your company and where you are now and where you want to be, what some of the goals are. Is the vision still there? Does everyone know what the vision is? And if not, well, that's what you're going to be focusing on the next week. This is the vision of the company. How can I help my team see that, or clients?
That's really great. Set aside the time you need to do that. Partition it off. I think that's really important. Protect that time. As as we talk about vision and how you operate your company, how you kind of structure your time and the vision for your business, there's things you've learned along the way that have informed how you've gone about that. The things that you believe to be true for you, for your business. You just said one of them of, hey, it takes a day for me. Like, that's something I know for me, that it takes for me to do this the right way. What is one, or what are just some gospel truths that you have consistently gone back to? That being one of them. That was a great example. But provide another of like something that you continue to go back to of like, this is a principle that for me and my business I live by and has been successful.
I'm the bottleneck. I don't know if that's like a great principle, but most of the time, if things aren't moving, it's because of me, and I'm holding up my team.
And being willing to admit that so that you can fix it. Yep.
Yeah, like, and there's been times where, and honestly, it was just happening the other week, where I found myself, I was getting in the bottleneck again, and Wave, our brand account manager, she was asking some questions, and I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to empower her. If she's asking me these questions, how can I empower her to feel confident to make the executive decision? Because by me not empowering her to have that leadership role, or to feel like she can ask the client this, or to just say, yeah, let's go ahead and make this edit or whatever. She's waiting on me, and maybe I'm recording a podcast. Maybe I'm, doing out of the office that day or something. Now something's not going to be happening, and it's because of me, and it's something that I've been doing for too long, that I have not allowed my team to be empowered in that role. So I found that it's most often, if things aren't getting done, I can't get frustrated with my team. It's something that within my system that I have not taught them or delegated correctly, and I am holding everything back from really scaling or getting done to the way it should be.
That's really great. I mean, having the humility to say and admit to get out of the way, to get out of your team's way, and to let them, if you put the right people in place, they'll do their jobs, they'll do it well if you've trained them right, and to just get out of the way so that those processes can play themselves out is really good.
It's interesting, because you got kids too, Brandon, and my youngest, Vivian, she's 7, and we've been talking about trust a lot at home. And it not that we don't trust her, but there's a girl in her class who has been going into her backpack and taking pencils and I was like, man, that's really hard, because now, that little girl, she's kind of ruined your trust, And so we've been talking about trust a lot in our house. And I think it is so hard to earn back,
yes.
And it's so hard to give, especially when we're an entrepreneur. It is so hard to just give the trust and be like, here you go. I trust you to do it. Because, like I said earlier, no one can do the job as good as me, But having trust in your team is really hard to do. But if you put the right people in place, you have to give it. You have to give it and give all your trust until they give you a reason not to. And when that happens, well, then,
different conversation.
Yep. But I mean, it's just letting the little bird go out of the nest and being like, all right, I trust you, go.
Sure.
I got to focus on this other thing. And so I think that trust is hard, and you have to make sure that you have your clients' trust, and you have to make sure that you give your team members trust, because you hired them for a reason. Trust them. We're all adults. Trust them, and just trust yourself that you hired the right person.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's just, You're right. As an entrepreneur, it's so tough. I mean, what your daughter on this smaller scale is learning right now is like, well, if this other little girl breaks my trust, that means I lose some of my pencils. I
Hmm.
think as an entrepreneur, when stakes are higher, if this person breaks my trust, that hurts my business,
Hmm.
and hurts the other people in my business, and that just feels so much higher stakes. And so much, some of the time, you just want to do it yourself, hold
Yep.
on to it, and or at least more closely manage it so that it's done
Yeah.
to your expectation. And I totally agree with all that. Letting that bird fly free and
Yeah.
letting that process play out because you put the right people in place is great perspective. If you can think of one, Katie, what's a failure that still stings, that when you think about it still stings? So what did you ultimately learn from it and take from it?
Mhm. Probably one failure that still stings is I we had a new client come in, and it was the easiest sale I've ever done. They came in, they said, "I saw you on a LinkedIn Live. I want to work with you. I loved your philosophies. I want to work with you. How do I sign up?" Cool. And the the reason why I consider it a fail is because we didn't onboard correctly.
Hmm.
Um, Typically, we have an entire 2-week, onboarding process. We learn the ins and outs, build out your customer journey, all these things. And I let the new client, direct the timeline.
Hmm.
And we were editing podcasts, 2 days after signing the contract. And I was like, well, we typically don't do that though, because we're still trying to get all the data on your past podcast episodes to see like, okay, well, this is when they come out. These are what episodes do the best. I mean, like here we are already editing podcasts. That was not what we normally do. But I said, okay, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. And I didn't look at our systems, because I was like, we can handle it. We have the capacity. Let's go ahead and edit the podcast. And soon the podcast was edited. Well, I want the social media posts. I'm like, well, I haven't even done the strategy yet. Like, you literally just closed the sign the contract 2 days ago. It takes me a while to build out this entire strategy. And I was like, well, let's go ahead. We can just create a couple posts real quick. And everything that we did was because I didn't stick to my own systems. And I think that sometimes we can get into the habit of like, okay, well, I just want to make the client happier. Oh, I can do that. And just because we can, it doesn't mean it's going to happen the way that it should, or to the standards that you normally do. And that was, eventually we ended up agreeing that it wasn't making sense for us to work together, because they wanted a lot more faster turnaround, and that wasn't part of our standards. And I think that you have to, once you create the systems and the processes, stick with them, regardless if you might like, oh, well, I can go ahead and expedite it, or I can go ahead and do that. Just, you created the system for a reason. Stick with it. Stick with the processes. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And you created them for a reason. And with all the institutional knowledge you've been building, like you build them for a reason. There are specific things that inform the decisions you're making, the processes you're putting in place. To step outside of that, there's a time and a place for everything, but that can be really difficult. And that's a great example of how it can be a negative thing sometimes too.
Yeah.
When you talk with, you do a lot of connecting, a lot in your line of work. As you talk with other entrepreneurs, what is a question that a lot of entrepreneurs ask you? What's a question you just get asked the most? And the second part to that is, what's a question they should be asking but often don't?
One of the most common questions I get asked by entrepreneurs is the hiring question, is when to hire, especially because I have such a large team now. Of, oh, well, when do you hire? Like, when do you hire? How do you like figure out like the payments for everybody, and like how are you firing and find replacements? Like, the first hire question is probably the most common question I get asked by any entrepreneur, just because I have a large team. And I guess that's, a large team doesn't mean more success. Honestly, we had 13 at the beginning of the year, and now we're down to 9. I honestly would like to get it down to 7, if possible. And the reason why is because there's a lot of hands in the pot right now. And so I'd like to have a smaller team where everyone's on the same page, instead of like, oh, well, I thought you were doing that, and then I was doing that. And so I found that really looking to see what people's superpowers are, how much time they're spending on tasks. Okay, it takes them, they spent 20 hours this week doing podcast pitching. That is a terrible use of their time. Why have they been doing that? Like, how can I help them? Let's use Podmatch, because that'll take them maybe 2 hours a week or something. So, let's try and find better solutions on how you can optimize your team time and what their superpowers are, because then they're going to be happier doing something that they actually like doing, instead of like, oh, I have to go ahead and email a bunch of people I don't know or whatever, So a bigger team doesn't always mean more success. Really focus in on hiring people that are experts in that role that you're hiring them for.
And what would be a question that they don't always ask, but you think they should? Something that they're missing?
Something that I think that they're missing. A lot of people ask me about, if they have a podcast, like, oh, well, how many downloads until I can get sponsors? And man, that's just one of the biggest misconceptions out there. Anything is sponsorable. Anything. Brandon, you're so lucky. You know what it's like to have a very successful podcast. But not everyone's going to reach, Joe Rogan numbers. Not everyone's going to get millions of downloads. And you can still have a very successful podcast that grows an audience, grows a community, builds out thought leadership, and you can monetize. But it all comes back to the data. Who's listening? And if you know who your listener is and have shown up for them consistently time and time again, well, that's very desirable to a sponsor. So don't be afraid to, if you have a podcast with small numbers, your podcast is sponsorable. It's all about looking at the data. And the number one question I think people should be asking is, how do I look at more of my data? Not how do I get more sponsors? Because your data will tell you literally everything you need to know about your social strategy, your website strategy, your podcast strategy, everything. So
that's really good. And I think that podcasts in particular are a specific way in which your small audience can be valuable specifically. Like they're usually highly knowledgeable in that space. They trust you as a voice and thought leader in that space. And even if it's 100 people listening to every single one of your episodes and are highly affiliated to your space, and you're talking about dogs, like that dog food manufacturer may be really interested to get in front of those 100 very other highly affiliated people in the dog world. And I think that podcast is a unique way that it can get to niche audiences like that.
It's so true. And I, like I said, a lot of people get nervous. They're like, oh, I only get like 100 downloads an episode. And it's like, okay, how would you feel like if twice a week you're showing up and talking to a room of 100 people that are like,
that's true.
Tell me more. So think of those numbers as actual people, and just get to know them. Get to know those people.
That's really good. All right, Katie. So as we kind of wrap up here, let me ask you a couple closing questions. I ask all founders is kind of to pick the brains of, highly accomplished people that are out there doing what so many of my founders who listen want to be doing, and where they want to be in their career. It just helps me get into your brain so they can hear that and get that perspective. Imagine if you woke up at the start of your career, so at the beginning, but you had all the knowledge and experience that you have now. With that knowledge and experience, what would you spend that first week doing of that fresh start?
The very first thing that I did when I started my business was build out a website. Okay, now I'm official. Now I'm real. I would have done more market research. I think really getting to know who needed social media services. Who do I want to work with? Because everyone isn't an answer. It's not. And so who do I really want to work with? What will I and won't I do? I'm not the person for you to do 18 tweets a day, and I'm not the person that's going to do, 100 videos a week. That's not me. Could it be me? Yeah, I really easily could do that. But figuring out, like what you said, your differentiator is, and I think building that out, just spending, especially with AI now, spend some time with ChatGPT. It wasn't around when I started my business, but it is now. So, new business owner, you are very lucky. Sit down with it and talk to the GPT about what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you want to do, what it is that you don't want to do. Spend that time, and you're going to have such a clear picture of, where you need to just get started after spending a day with ChatGPT, that you're going to be set up for so much more success. And you're going to be ready to go out and, okay, these are the clients, these are the type of people I need to be in front of on a regular basis. How can I find them? How can I go in front of them? Yeah, that way you're not spending time on Fiverr and Upwork and Thumbtack like I was. You can go and start getting the right clients right from the get-go.
That's great. I love it. Yep. Okay, so lastly, what's one tool, quote, or book that you found indispensable to your professional or personal progress?
You mean other than The Social Shift? No.
I was just going to say, I'll give you a chance for sure. I want to talk about your book here. But yeah, no, other than that.
No, so I love the book Traction. We were talking about it earlier, Brandon. I think that Traction is a great book. It really helped me realize that I was the bottleneck in so much of my business and where I needed to go and get that next hire. I hired Sean, my COO. He's incredible. He thinks of things and does things the way that I hate. He's building out workflows and swim lanes and all these things. And I'm like, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, glad somebody's doing it.
Yeah, but it needs to be done. And so Traction was a game changer for me. I absolutely love Traction. I think that it does do a lot of like corporate and larger, like medium to large business examples in it. But I do think that it's good for numerous, smaller businesses and solopreneurs just to kind of realize, okay, where's my next hire? What's my next move?
What's your next move? Totally. That's what I've gotten out of it too. That's wonderful. So yes, do tell me a little bit about your book and where people can find it, and next step, and where people can find you guys if they're resonating with what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I wrote the book, The Social Shift. It's all about posting on social media less and which social media platforms make the most sense for you to be on. Like I said before, I don't think you need to be on every social media platform. You just need to be on the right ones, posting the right way. And that's what I talk about in The Social Shift. And then if you like podcasts, you're listening to this one, please check out Rocky Mountain Marketing. I do 2 episodes a week. And we talk all about digital marketing strategies. So, yeah.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to put links to those in the show notes. If people are interested, they can find them there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you so much. This was so valuable. I loved it. I loved hearing your perspective and your thought process as you both built and then grew your business. This was really great. And I appreciate you taking the time to share that with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, you take care. If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it. Second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com if you have additional questions about topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi. Please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.